welcome to Inbound After Hours. Today we have Matt Barby from HubSpot. He's an SEO specialist, so Ricky has been looking really forward to this because that's your field. So Matt, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. For that, Matt.
Okay, so you're an Englishman. Whereabouts in England?
Well, spent the past probably 5 years prior to a couple of years ago in Birmingham, but I'm a Midlander. Originally, yeah. So no one in the States understands. No one just have to say the distance from London. So
so it's London or Manchester. That's say the football team.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So that's cool. Most of our listeners are from the UK anyway. So that's good. It's good to know. And how did you end up at HubSpot then? Bit of history. What's your story?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story actually. I was previously working at a marketing agency in the UK, heading up digital for all of our clients there. And I just got an email out of the blue one day from our then VP of content. And Brian, our CEO, had read an article on my blog. Don't really know how we stumbled across it. And I think he must have said to Joe at the time, we should go chat to this guy. Joe originally tried to call me, and I was actually at the time getting a lot of phone calls from HubSpot trying to sell me HubSpot. And I remember actually hanging up the phone initially because it was like, it's just HubSpot trying to call me and sell me stuff. But then he dropped me an email, we chatted, said we should come over, and ended up taking the job over originally in our Dublin office. And then about 9 months ago now, came over to the Cambridge office here in Boston, which has been another adventure. My wife obviously really loves just being uprooted.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you inbounded them. You wrote a blog. You got them sucked in.
It's pretty much the inbound story. I'd love to say that I meant for it to play out like that, but no. Yeah, it is kind of a nice story for me in the sense that it does really tie into all of that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So you're headhunted by Brian. How good is that?
That's a good thing to point to. So what's your exact role here? What do you do day to day? What do you get involved in?
So I head up user acquisition to our sales products. Okay. So pretty much my job is to get free users into our CRM, and HubSpot sells free through pretty much any channel. So I have an SEO team that rolls into myself. Just about to have now an affiliate team. We've got some kind of brand focused team, and then we have integrations and BD partnerships that we also have that kind of spans across into my team as well.
So you brought in to do specifically that when you were launching CRM?
Originally, actually I was focused more broadly. To be honest, when I first came in, it was more to solve SEO. I actually remember when I was first having the conversations with HubSpot, and it's okay, Matt, we wanted to come in and look after SEO, and this is kind of globally across pretty much all of our products at the time, kind of more on the marketing side. I remember saying, okay, cool, so how big's the SEO team? And they're like, we don't have an SEO team. And I was like, wait, what? Because for the size of HubSpot, I always imagined, but the growth of this company came from the content team. That team is an incredible team and still does really amazing stuff. So and since kind of when I came in, we started to be a bit more deliberate about our SEO, I would say at least. And then I started moving over to the sales product side of the business, where we're really focused a lot of our attention on right now. Seeing great growth. Obvious problems and challenges that we're facing along the way, but now that's kind of spanned outside of just organic search as well. But we've got an awesome SEO team here at the moment as well.
What size is that now?
So we have directly within the SEO team, there's 3 people and then myself. I'm not technically in the SEO team anymore, but they're kind of roll into my team. And then we have the content team, which I almost banned as part of that, that is, I'm not actually sure on the exact numbers, maybe 15 or so people, and then we have our regional teams as well. So we have the DACH team, the LATAM team, and then everyone coordinates into the SEO team as well. So there's a lot of work that the SEO team have.
When you first came in and you just looked at HubSpot as a site to start an SEO project, I can't even imagine that. I don't know how many URLs that was the day one, and you just click where on earth do I start here?
It was that was kind of like the question I was asking for a good 2 months, is where the hell do I start, right? The site is huge, and we were publishing, when I came, around 350 blog posts every month. Yeah, that's more than most companies do in
forever.
Forever, right? And so that was one of the initial challenges, was just prioritizing. I think that's where when you get to the enterprise level of SEO is so key, to have prioritization and experimentation frameworks that you can use to make sure you're only focusing on the right things. We had a lot of tech debt that we'd accrued over the years, that we had to do a lot of unsexy stuff that got us some huge wins. I remember fixing the pagination on our blog, probably the least sexiest thing we could do. It's probably the single biggest win we had from an organic search point of view. I think we increased organic search by around about 50% to the core site in a few hours, and that is millions of visitors. So
it's a dream, isn't it?
It's great, and there are still a lot of those things that we have to overcome. A lot of those we're spanning with any big companies, product fixes and web fixes, and trying to solve for the user, and also for organic search, and a bunch of these different complexities, and then add the international layer on top, and it gets even more complicated. But it's all fun challenges, for sure.
Have you found any difference in the UK market to the US market in marketing terms of SEO? Have you seen any?
Oh, definitely. I think the way I would probably kind of separate these out, I think people in the UK have a much lower tolerance for bullshit, is the best way I would say it. And this is actually something that we find a lot on the sales persona versus the marketing persona. I think generally people in marketing have relatively high tolerance to bullshit, and it's okay. People actively want to learn, and you're okay with reading through some very top of the funnel stuff. Salespeople do not. They do not have the time to even spend on a lot of this stuff. And actually, that was one of the big learning curves for us. Similar thing to an extent with the Australian and UK markets versus North Am. It's just people tend to consume content a little bit differently. However, very different to the likes of the German market, which is very straight to the point, very informative, and the words are 10 times as long. So it's having
fun meta titles, isn't it?
Well, actually, there are some really interesting UX problems that you come into with that, even on product pages, when it's I think inbound marketing was we had to reduce down the font size because it was just ridiculous. So.
Things you take for granted, don't you, until you're exposed when you're working at a UK agency, and then suddenly you're global.
Absolutely, it's the little things that you don't even really think about. A lot of the problems that we face, to be honest, and that I've faced over the past couple of years, are the first time I've ever had to face those specific problems, or the first time the company's ever had to face them. So it makes it really interesting from that side, but constantly keeps you trying to hunt out those problems as opposed to them hunting you out in a way.
Where's SEO at? So our persona's the marketing manager at an in-house company. That's most sort of people who would watch this. If you're that person, where's SEO at today? I talk a lot about there's a lot of hype in SEO. It's easy to focus on what's coming next and getting distracted from what tactics are actually working today. In your opinion, where is that? What works today from SEO? And that's an extremely broad question.
I think it's actually an important question, because it's probably the number one thing people ask me is what is SEO today? And this often stems back, to take this back a little bit, is people, another thing that gets banded around a lot is SEO changes so much. SEO is changing on a daily basis, and I don't know how to stay up to date with it, right? The reality is, though, if you kind of really look at how the search engines have evolved, the search engines haven't changed a whole lot in even the past 10 years compared to what we perceive it. The things that have changed the most have been the people searching in the search engines, right? You think last year, 20% of all searches on Google's mobile device searches were all done by voice. Wow. It's a huge amount. The way that you speak versus the way you type is completely different. Completely changes the way you have to think about appearing for some of those search queries. keyword rankings are becoming almost like irrelevant to a certain extent now, because it's so hard to even try and track in one place or another. So then the thing that I try to push more than anything is not necessarily to focus on having like a bag of tactics, right? Like having that like bag of tactics is really useful, but tactics expire really, really quickly. And usually it's not because like the search engines have changed that much. It's because like us as marketers go and overdo it and ruin it for everyone, right? Like this is...
We said that in the last two episodes. We ruin everything, don't we?
And that is it. And the thing that I would always push for anyone involved in organic search in particular, but also I'd say any marketing channel, is to focus on finding problems. Like finding problems is way more valuable than having a tactic, because there are always problems to find. And if you can develop a really good skill set for understanding when a problem may occur, whether it's going to be now or in 2 years' time, that is much more valuable for me at least than just being able to say, hey, okay, here's this little hack that's going to get us maybe a really awesome win right now. It's like, okay, what are you going to do after that? Right? And it's a means to an end.
Well, that's good. What are you guys focusing on then? What's the future? I mean, when we were traveling, we were on the plane, it's like, what are we going to make these podcasts about? So we think it's about the future marketing.
People being prepared.
What are you guys doing now to tackle this?
For me, one of the things that is driving us on acquisition as a whole is the idea that largely reigns true, and I firmly believe this. Every single acquisition channel that you ever operate in suffers fatigue at some point, right? This can be like, in the sense of organic search, you can be amazing at SEO, rank number one for every single keyword that you're going after, right? Everywhere. But there's one thing that you can't really do, is make someone search more, right? So like when you're hitting a certain amount of volume, like you've captured it all, you probably can't grow that much more, or search demand goes down and then you suffer fatigue from it. It's out of your hand. The same with paid, CPCs goes up, costs you more on the... and you're getting less of a return. So for us, what we're trying to do right now is become early adopters in as many new channels that are opening up. Chatbots is something that I'm personally really enthusiastic about. We're going heavy on that at HubSpot, and just trying to get into channels where the acquisition costs are really low, the competition is really low, and the risk is really high. We're building an Alexa skill, we're building Slack bots, we're trying to go and dive into existing pools of users and be there before it gets too saturated, and basically creating an acquisition channel strategy that's full of tons of channels, as far away from the point of suffering fatigue as possible.
And you've got to be prepared with that sort of strategy, I guess, that you're going to lose some are going, you're going to put some time and money and effort into it, and then they're not going to turn into anything big, but 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of those channels is going to explode and make all the difference.
1 in 4 would be a wonderful outcome. I would say probably about 80% of the things that my team as a whole probably attempts fails, and like I would definitely see that as a good thing.
Definitely.
If we're doing things that continuously work, we're probably being too safe. And there's always something to learn from something that hasn't worked that can be applied somewhere else. And timing is another critical piece into this. If it doesn't work right now, it could potentially work a little later. There are a lot of different factors at play that could be a reason for this. I mean, Microsoft launched the first ever tablet PC in 2001, right? But like, who used that? Right? So I think we're just testing around a lot of the different areas and channels that may potentially send us down a path to something new.
That surprised me, that stat, 80% failure rate to get the 20% work rate. I didn't think it'd be so high.
First market wins are so big. It would definitely.
Yeah, I think it's just the nature of what we're trying to do now. We have a lot of channels that we've performed so well in for such a long time, and now we're starting to feel the fatigue in some of those. Organic search is actually a perfect example of that. We have huge visibility. I'd argue we're probably one of the largest, if not the largest, B2B website in terms of raw traffic numbers in the world. And it's hard to scale bigger than that. So we're trying to make some like efficiencies and gains further down the funnel, but like we still need to grow the top of it, and doing that needs to go outside of traditional things that we've relied on for such a long time, which means having back-to-back failures. But we have some really great wins in amongst it, and we learn way more from the failures than we do from the wins.
I'd like to have a chat about voice in search, because you mentioned it.
Sure.
I did a talk about the future of SEO at the end of every year you do at your local sort of events, and voice was one of them. And this may be one of the differences between the UK and the US market, but I said, put your hand up if you've tried voice search, and it's most people. Put your hand up if you use it regularly. And I think there's 50 marketers, and I don't think there's one guy, I think, and I can't remember how he was using it. So I got on and I was talking, I've still yet to see anyone use it in real life and stuff. And then we hired an American girl in our team, and she's walking in the office chatting to Siri. I'm like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. The point I was making, not that voice search isn't happening, and it's going to happen, because it is, but I don't think the market's there yet in the UK anyway. You may disagree with that. What do you think on that? Is it big now, and are people doing it, or is it younger generations that I'm just not as visible to?
I was equally pessimistic around voice in general for quite a while. I recently read a stat, now this is survey data, that was relatively large sample, but it's still not completely representative. In the US, 40% of adults use search via voice at least once per day.
Wow.
Which is
huge.
Pretty huge.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the thing that changed my mind around voice was when I got an Echo.
Yeah, we did the same.
I started using Alexa, and I was like, okay, it's quite frustrating. Don't know whether it's just my British accent it's getting confused on, but I have to continually repeat to it. But I did start to notice, wow, that there are some real convenience pieces within this. Adoption rates are becoming bigger and bigger. I think the key thing here is that natural language processing is getting better and better and better. Definitely. And the things that you can do to interface with like a voice layered interface is so much greater. And the fact that on the Amazon side, whereas like Alexa is technologically nowhere near as good as Google Home, but it has the hookup to Amazon. Right, convenience is the thing that's going to drive everything here. It's the reason why we use like Uber and Lyft. It's the reason why you have like any on-demand service is used all the time, like Instacart to get your groceries delivered. There's pretty much an app for everything. And now we've taken laziness to the new level where we can't even be asked to type on our phones. We now need to shout at a device, right? And convenience will win out. I remember when touchscreens first hit smartphones. I remember the time thinking, this is never going to take off, right? You need your BlackBerry keyboard, right? So many people are like, the keyboard, it will happen. And I think like when you look at the likes of, Snapchat are one example of a company investing huge in augmented reality. The sheer amount of people invested heavily into natural language processing tells me this is an industry that's going to take a lot to die, and with the clear benefits to the end user, and it's being embedded into people's homes in huge numbers. Worldwide, actually, a lot of people are using either Alexa or Google Home. I don't know the exact stats, but I think this is going to be pretty huge pretty quickly.
When we got the Echo, I was saying to my wife, give it a go, and she said, no, these voice recognition things are terrible. I said, what are you saying that from? And she said, can you remember when we used to try and do the Odeon like 10 years ago? Used to go, I want to see a show in Newcastle. Newcastle. I was like, no, it's not like that anymore. It's come on a little bit. And she gave it a go. She's like, recognise my voice. It knew what I was talking about.
And it really does like trigger really quickly like that learning. I've definitely seen huge improvements just personally in like voice. It's, for me, has stopped becoming a gimmick now. And I think the fact that all of these different apps that we're using, and then like the voice is just the layer to connect into these things. Like I I'll use Spotify all the time.
Yeah.
But most of the time I'll say, Alexa, play this.
Yeah,
right?
And
it's just like that's your interface. But now what you're doing is you're connecting your Spotify data into Amazon.
Yeah.
And that's like one new piece of information that Amazon have on you to connect to the rest of the data. And it's this systematic connecting of data points that's going to basically get to the end point where they can be way more predictive about everything that you're doing.
It's so true. I mean, in the office, we use it every day.
We do, yeah. We have all of our Spotify playlists for the office on there.
The guys use it constantly. And
timers, just little things like the weather, anything. I use it the most in the morning and then at night, when I get in. Just quick transactions. Yeah. It's all about convenience.
Yeah, definitely. We picked up some AirPods in the airport yesterday, a little wireless. You tap it twice and Siri just kicks in straight away. So even it's clever stuff. Yeah.
We at that same talk when we're talking about voice search, I was trying it back to inbound. I was saying it's great that if you're doing truly great inbound, you're actually by accident somewhat preparing yourself very well for voice search, because you should be answering a lot of question-based titles. You should be writing in a pretty natural tone and language anyway. So you're kind of accidentally preparing yourself great for voice search on the assumption that people will be getting on these and asking questions.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have been asking me of late, like, how do you optimize for voice search? And I see tons of articles out there, like 10 ways to optimize for voice and all of this. The reality here is you can't really optimize for voice. It's very difficult in general to optimize for the way people are changing in search. What it's doing is just creating huge diversity in the types of queries that are coming in. It's extending the long tail of keywords and makes, in all honesty, keyword research really, really fucking tough.
Yeah, I guess the number of unique phrases are going up, and the length of...
Exactly, the length is one of the biggest things that's changing is like query length. This is like one of the examples I often use is, can you imagine going back, let's say 10 years, right? And you typed into Google, find me a restaurant to eat near me, right? Someone would look at you and be like, you're an idiot. Right? Like
it's not got the answer to
you're
that.
Not speaking to a person here. You should type restaurant Boston. Now you're like, find me a restaurant that's in walking distance. And you're going to get the results, right? And the key thing as well with voice is where you would previously have a list of 10 results, right, in the search engines, you're going to probably get one now. And it's shortening that, so there's less real estate. The key thing that we're really pushing at HubSpot, and what I would push for voice, but generally SEO from like today onwards, is focus on owning topics, not keywords, and just being able to like own whole spheres of a topic and just get broad ownership of a bunch of different phrases and core groups in that area. And that's the best way to think about things. Gone are the days on the long tail of just going after one keyword. It can still apply really like for very specific queries, like in our case, right, like free CRM software, right, that people aren't yet asking for that in Alexa, unfortunately. But when they do, we'll be there. So there's still an element of that, but there's a huge shift.
Obviously, you guys have been investing in that side from a technology viewpoint and building out the SEO topic modeling tool and stuff. Do you want to tell the guys who don't know much about that what it is and how it's going to help them with SEO a little bit?
Yeah, so the content strategy tool is actually something I've been working really closely on with the product team over the past year and a half. It's been really great fun in doing. We realized we had kind of like to up our game on the SEO side on the product, and our keywords tool has not really been much of a tool for a long time, and it's kind of just sat there for a little while, and we said, okay, like we need to bring like our SEO product into the modern times and practice a lot of what we've been preaching. So what we've started to do is move towards this idea of enabling our customers to build clusters of content and own topics, and more importantly, eventually measure the performance of content in these topic clusters. And in the background, this is doing some really awesome stuff with creating internal linking and information architecture that's going to work really well for SEO, but our customers aren't necessarily going to need to get into the weeds of all the technical parts. So we're kind of like for us, SEO is about focusing on the things that are going to add the most value to you as a business, and not necessarily having to worry about every single tiny technical piece. Yeah, I think we obsess a bit over that in SEO. It's like getting into weeds of every single thing, and there is a lot of situations. I'm a huge champion of technical SEO, but not everybody needs to know technical SEO.
If you've got a 6-page website, there are obviously things you need to make sure you're doing, but you're not going to be an expert.
But you're not going to get huge wins with architecture changes on a 6-page website. That's the key. So I think that's what we want to do, is just help a lot of people make wins with things like architecture and build things correctly, do keyword research, and help them own topics without necessarily having to do tons and tons of manual processes with like a million different spreadsheets, subscriptions to like 100 different tools, right? It's like, you're going to use other tools other than HubSpot. Like I love even other SEO tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs. We use them here. They're great. But what we want to do is have our product serve as the hub of everything that you're doing, and actually you can use other tools to just add on top of that.
How important is still the baseline of SEO? So I split SEO into two. It's kind of off-site and on-site, and then you've got your on-site, you've got your basic, your keyword research, your title tag, your content on your page, etc. The kind of, I don't want to call it the older stuff, but the basics of telling Google what this page is about.
Right.
As Google's getting smarter and figuring what the page is about on its own, where are we at in that? How important is it still to go and do the basics?
Right. Yeah. I think this is. I was talking to someone about this a few days ago, actually. The thing to remember about Google right now is Google can understand what the content of a web page is all about way better than the human eye can. Yeah. It has an infinite level of like data coming into it that it can run through machine learning algorithms that can do a way better job in a millisecond of determining what a page is about, without like where the human eye would have to read something in detail, judge context, things like that. Like the idea that we understand language better than machines is a fallacy. And that's where then when you think about on-page SEO, for me, on-page SEO was incredibly important. Is still important, right? But go back a few years, was important because Google was stupid, right? And you had to really babysit Google and give it the information in such an obvious way for it to be able to break down and understand relevancy of content. You don't need to do it right now. Like, the reality is you can rank for a keyword without ever having that keyword on a page. Now, if you can put that keyword on a page, that makes things a lot easier. On-page SEO for me is like the bare minimum of what anyone should be doing. If you're not even doing that, like, you're not only not doing SEO, you're just not doing your job, right? It's like exactly. So for me, it's like, okay, there are a few things there that are just like, they are ticks in the box now.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes on-page SEO gets obsessed over a little too much with things like product pages. I see this a lot where people are like, okay, I need my keyword in my H1 tag. And it doesn't really work in terms of like, like it doesn't really read that well. If people come onto this and they're going to try and buy this thing, do they need this awkward thing there? It's like, but we need it for SEO. Removing that is not necessarily going to mean you're going to suddenly dive into like page 5. But if you could make some conversion increases, you're probably going to get more revenue. So I think sometimes we take on-page SEO in terms of like those minor details a bit too seriously.
I've done those old school sort of tactics.
Right, exactly. I think it's just like, they're important, but the thing now is like no one single thing is going to be the make or break. Like backlinks are still, in most situations, probably the biggest weighting factor to ranking. When you get to our kind of scale, like at HubSpot, links become way less of a important play for us because we just have so much authority, right? Like, we're a publicly floated company. We get links from everywhere, or every quarter from like the biggest companies aside from the
That's a good point. The guys who are watching then, the marketing managers, you said it's split into two. You've got your on page and your outreach is what we're speaking about. How important is that still to the smaller companies, the smaller
people who don't get given links?
You don't get given links at your size. How important is that still?
I think everything is relative, right? So someone that's really good at SEO is not it doesn't necessarily need to be someone who can earn you links from the Wall Street Journal or do some amazing technical SEO pieces. A really good SEO is someone who can analyze through the situation you're currently in and understand which lever is the most important to pull at this moment in time, right? If you're not a HubSpot and you're a brand new website, you could, and probably this is one of the things I see companies do wrong most frequently, brand new website with barely any authority, i.e. backlinks, and they'll be like, okay, we're going to create 2 blog posts a week, and we're going to push that out, and 3 months goes by, they're not really ranking, so okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 blog posts per week, right? Like, you can make a really bad meal, and someone can say, well, this tastes horrible, right? Would you give them twice as much to try and make that taste any better, right? It's probably going to taste worse, right? So, like, there's no other situation where you do twice of the same underperforming thing to try and get, like, a positive from it. And that happens so much, right? So, like, in those situations, like, okay, right, what we need to do is not necessarily increase what we're doing here. Let's take some of these resources and put them into a different problem that we perceive. And this all comes back to being a problem solver versus someone who is a bag of tactics, right? And that's then, in that case, incredibly important. A lot of the time, these two things are very interlinked, right? Like, you need content a lot of the time to earn backlinks. And the kind of backlinks that you can earn at that level, you're not going to go straight from 0 to Wall Street Journal, right? There's a lot of okay, let's start out low-level blogs. Start building that relationship. It's almost like this pyramid, right? Like, okay, now we've got to this bench level of authority. Start moving up, trade publications, get a little bit bigger. We're an entrepreneur, we're in Inc.
You've got the credibility to go and ask for it.
Exactly. You've got like local press and national press, global press. Maybe you don't ever need, most people don't even need to get to the top of the pyramid, right? Like, this is all relative to what you're going after. And I think that is the key of, especially like the link building / PR portion, is knowing where you need to be and where you can realistically be right now, and then pushing resources into it.
What are the metrics people should be focusing on in SEO? So SEO has always been a metric game. It's getting less and less a metric game. People used to track page rank, and now obviously domain authority and page authority and keyword rankings. Which of these things should you still be bothered about, or do you scrap it? And
revenue.
That's exactly right. Or do you just scrap it and go to the opposite end of the funnel?
I think if only it was as easy as revenue. To be fair, for most companies, like it's very difficult. Attribution is still probably the number one problem most companies face. We face that a huge amount. I think you've got elements of different metrics are useful at different parts of the business. Like, at the end of the day, if organic search isn't actually making a gain on the revenue side of the business, then you're probably not wanting to necessarily go after organic search too heavy. Sometimes SEO isn't the right play, right? Like, if we're getting into the weeds of like granularity, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the kind of like the made up metrics in the industry of like domain authority, page authority, and all like that side of things. Like, there are some link metrics that are kind of like, what I tend to find though, which is actually really unhelpful for a lot of people probably listening to this, is like, I find over the years you develop an eye for, especially when it comes to like understanding authority, going through backlink profiles very quickly and determining how powerful something is. Ultimately, there are a few things that you just need to remember with any metric, and I'm not shitting on domain authority and page authority and all these things. That they are very useful to a lot of people. The key thing to understand is these are not 100% accurate, and as long as you're okay with these are finger in the air, here's a general idea, right? Like, even any metrics that you can give, unless they are like directly owned metrics, right? Like traffic to your site that's being pinged in your server logs, right? Like that's stuff that you know. You can calculate like internal like page rank, if you like, or authority, because you own that stuff and it's just relevant to your site. Anything that's locked behind the huge walls that we call Google, you're never going to get the exact. So anything you're doing there, just use it as a general guideline to steer you in the right direction. And wherever you can, have like really strong experimentation like frameworks, and use a ton of different metrics to just like create a buffer that's going to help you understand realistically where you're going.
No, that's good.
You happy with that? Great answer. Yeah, superb. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate that.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Take care, and hope to see you back in the UK sometime.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care. Bye-bye then.